Picture a foggy evening in September 1924. You are a young woman walking home from work in St. Louis, Missouri, when suddenly a pair of hands clamps over your mouth and drags you into the shadows. You struggle to free yourself, but it's no use. The attacker is far stronger than you, pulls out a knife and tells you that if you scream, he will cut off your pretty little head. Then he does something that makes your blood run cold. He cuts off one of your fingers and throws it in your face. Tells you that now, you have only one chance to get away. If you can pick up that finger and place it in his mouth, he won't kill you. But if you fail, well then he'll be forced to kill you and add another soul to his collection. Your heart pounds in your chest. Do you accept the challenge? Well, if you did, you would have survived the attack of America's most feared killer. During the 1920s, a wave of terror washed over the United States. People went about their daily lives in fear. Many tried to protect themselves by traveling in groups or avoiding certain places altogether, all because they were stalked by a mysterious killer who seemed unstoppable. This was the work of a man known as the Shadow Killer, who earned this nickname because he always attacked his victims in the shadows. In total, he killed at least 13 women and injured many more, and the authorities had absolutely no idea who he was. In this video, we will show you the true story behind America's most feared killer. From his bizarre behavior to his possible identity, welcome to my channel. Today we will travel back in time to the 1920s to explore the disturbing world of America's most feared killer. Let's start with his bizarre behavior. The Shadow Killer operated primarily in St. Louis, Missouri, although some suspect he may have also struck in Cincinnati and Dayton, Ohio. The cities were terrorized by a phantom who appeared to come out of nowhere and strike his victims down with brutal efficiency. His preferred method was to ambush women on their way home from work. Once he had them isolated, he would attack, cutting off one of their fingers and throwing it in their face. He then gave them one chance to escape. If they could pick up the severed finger and place it in his mouth, he would let them go. But if they failed, well, then he would kill them and make it quick by slashing their throats. It seems insane, right? How could anyone behave like this? While the killer only claimed 13 victims, there were many more attacks that did not end in death. It seems likely that some victims accepted his gruesome challenge and lived to tell the tale, although we don't know for sure. That's because many attacks went unreported. African American women were often viewed as less important than white women, so their disappearances or murders received far less media attention. Of those attacks that were reported, none resulted in an arrest. Despite the best efforts of the police, the Shadow Killer remained at large, striking fear into the hearts of everyone he came across. As the body count rose, people began to panic. Rumors spread like wildfire, each more outlandish than the last. Some said the killer was a madman who escaped from an asylum. Others claimed he was a member of a secret cult. But in reality, the truth was far more disturbing. It was later discovered that the killer was responsible for at least 13 murders, and all of them took place within a 3-year period. The first murder attributed to the Shadow Killer was the death of a woman named in 1920. However, the killing that launched him into the spotlight occurred in 1922, when a woman named was found mutilated. After accepting the Shadow Killer's bizarre challenge, over the next 2 years, similar attacks continued to occur. The killer always seemed to be one step ahead of the police. No matter how many officers they sent to watch certain corners, he was always able to evade them. It seemed as if he could appear anywhere and everywhere at once. Then in September 1924, the killings came to an abrupt halt. But this was just the calm before the storm. On October that same year, a woman named was attacked and managed to escape. She told the police that her assailant was a tall, thin black man with a red handkerchief around his neck. Although the description was vague, it gave the police something to go on. Unfortunately, despite numerous raids of known criminals' hangouts, the Shadow Killer remained elusive. Even more frustrating for law enforcement was the fact that many witnesses described the killer as a tall, thin black man. But when they looked through police lineups, they consistently failed to identify any of the men shown to them. As the investigation continued, rumors began to circulate that the killer was targeting African American women. The press quickly picked up on this story, and before long, every paper in town was filled with stories of the Shadow Killer's reign of terror. The public demanded action, but the police were stumped. With each passing day, the shadow killer's legend grew. People began to believe that he was invincible, that he was a supernatural being who could not be stopped. But the truth was far more mundane. In 1926, a man named stepped forward and told the police that he knew the killer's identity. He claimed that the shadow killer was a man named who lived in an apartment above a pool hall. While this was certainly promising, there was one small problem. At the time, Williams was already in prison, serving a life sentence for a crime he did not commit. Williams vehemently denied the accusations, but with no other leads, the police decided to investigate. They searched Williams' prison cell and found a red handkerchief that matched the description of the one worn by the shadow killer. Williams' alibi for the time of the attacks was airtight, though, and there was no evidence to link him directly to the crimes. So he remained in prison while the search for the real killer continued. Eventually, the case went cold and Williams died believing he was innocent. But what really happened to the shadow killer? Did he ever stop attacking people? Or is he still out there lurking in the shadows waiting for his next victim? We may never know the truth, but there are a few theories out there that might just hit the mark. One theory is that the shadow killer was actually a serial killer named who targeted African American women during the 1920s and 30s. To date, Walker has been linked to the deaths of more than 50 women. However, despite his prolific killing, he was never caught. In fact, he evaded the authorities for so long that he even eluded the FBI's newly created serial killer database. Because the FBI didn't exist yet. The case was never linked to other attacks, and Walker was free to continue his reign of terror. As such, he may very well be America's first ever serial killer. But this theory has its flaws. While Walker was known to target African American women, he typically went after middle-class women. The shadow killer, on the other hand, seemed to target poor women. Additionally, Walker's MO involved strangulation rather than stabbing. So while he could be the shadow killer, it's unlikely. Another theory is that the killings were actually committed by a man named who confessed to several murders but was never brought to justice. Unlike the other theories, this one has merit. In 1925, a man matching Johnson's description was seen fleeing the scene of a crime. And when the police searched his apartment, they found a bloody knife and a box of women's fingers. Johnson was arrested but was released when the finger box was ruled inadmissible evidence. What's more, Johnson later confessed to 8 of the murders and even agreed to lead the police to the bodies of his victims. But when they arrived at the site, they found nothing. The case against Johnson fell apart and he was released. So which of these theories do you think is true? Is the shadow killer still out there? Or was he caught but never brought to justice? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. In the end, the shadow killer was never caught, and his legacy continues to haunt the streets of St. Louis to this day. The string of murders was one of the most terrifying in American history, and the brutality of the attacks shocked the nation. Despite the efforts of the police, the killer was never brought to justice, and the families of the victims were left without closure. But the story of the shadow killer also highlights the racial disparities that existed in the criminal justice system at the time. The fact that so many African American women were killed or mutilated, but received so little media attention, is a sad reminder of the prejudice and discrimination that they faced. What do you think? Could you survive an attack from the shadow killer? Would you accept his gruesome challenge? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Also, please like and subscribe to our channel. If you want to watch more videos like this, click the video on the screen now. Thank you for watching. Have a nice day.